KADYTV.com. And I wanted to just briefly introduce some of the guests. We've got John Sharkey. Would you please stand up, our mayor? We've got Chris Tyson, the Public Works Director. And we've got Greg Brown, the Community Development.
Thank you.
And then we also have our city manager, Cynthia Haas. Before we start, I would like you to join me if you'd like to rise and we'll say the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. Cynthia, with no further comments and blabber, would you please come up and give us your state and city, your name? Sure, thank you.
Do you want me to use the speaker or would you?
Speaker.
Okay, so is this, I don't know, is this on here? Okay. Well, first of all, I want to thank all of you for inviting me to come and speak. As Penny mentioned, I brought my wonderful team of my band of Mary and Chris Tyson and Greg Brown, and they I'm incredibly lucky to have such a great team. And they're going to help me out tonight in case there's some questions that you have. They are like, who says the greatest magnitude? So I am going to start though by talking a little bit about maybe some things that you'd be interested in hearing about. One of them is Hueneme Beach. Just everybody, I'm going to pull this back. It's a little hard for me here. Hueneme Beach, as all of you know, this last 12 months, actually probably 18 months to 2 years, has been devastating to the community with respect to the beach. We've lost an incredible amount of sand, and we've incurred a lot of damage out there. The reason that this has happened is that when the port was built, Deepwater Port was built, the jetties extended so far out that it interrupted the natural flow of sand on Hueneme Beach. We have pictures from the 1920s that show that without the Deepwater Port there, the sand made it around the corner just fine and had a really nice natural beach. But when those jetties were put in and the port was built, that interrupted the sand. The Army Corps of Engineers then engineered a way to fix that, and that was to build a sand trap up at Channel Islands Harbor. And that sand trap captures the sand that most every year gets dredged and put on our beach. But when the last time it was supposed to happen, we got only a fraction of what we should have gotten. And our sand moves south on a regular schedule of about 100,000 cubic yards every single month. So we only get about 600,000 cubic yards, and we should be getting about 2.5 million. That lasts about 6 months. And the result is what we've seen this last year, which again is a large amount of damage to the beach. Good news is, on October 8th, they are scheduled to start that dredge up again and start to pump all that sand from Channel Islands Harbor. They're going to place it at the southernmost jetty, and then that sand will be worked into place, and it too will start to move south, hopefully towards our pier. So that's what's happening with the sand. Some of you may have heard and known that we've had to close the pier. We had to close it for the summer. And the reason is because we lost some of the pilings. Those are the stilts that the port or the bed of the pier sets on. And so it became a dangerous situation. And so that's why we had to close the pier. We have, I think Chris is about 8 pilings, 7 pilings on board?
7 piles are going to be replaced.
So we have 7 piles that are on order. They have to be specially treated. They're quite expensive, and they're due to be here around the 20th of October. Somewhere shortly thereafter, they'll start driving those pilings into the sand and rebuilding the support structure in those areas that failed. And we were kind of assuming that probably by about the first of the year, maybe late this year, the pier will be open again. So that's sort of where we are with that. Again, the dredging activities, we're going to get about as much sand as we've ever received. We're going to get about 2.5 million cubic yards. The sand truck generally holds that amount. Right now it holds a little over 4 million cubic yards because they didn't dredge enough the last time. But we're going to be getting a fairly large amount of sand. We did hear that Silver Strand may be getting as much as 200,000 cubic yards, which is sort of got us scratching our heads because that beach doesn't really need sand right now. So we're hearing that perhaps that number will change. I don't think we have anything firm at this point that it will change, but at least we know for sure we'll be getting over 2 million cubic yards on our beach. So that's really good news for us. The rock that you see along the shoreline was put in to protect the infrastructure. We did have failures, of course, without the rock this year. We lost part of the seawall, we lost part of the sidewalk. Those have now been put back in place. And the rock that you see along the beach will actually stay. We got a permit from the Coastal Commission that's going to allow us to keep that rock in place for the long term. So really that becomes an insurance policy for us if this should ever happen again. Unfortunately, we're completely reliant on federal government funding the movement of sand. And so if Congress doesn't put the money in place to do this work, it's possible we could end up here again in the future. We hope that will never happen, but if we do, we have an insurance policy in the rock that's out there. We think that for the most part, the rock will be covered. We probably aren't getting enough sand, even though this is a huge amount of sand. We probably won't get enough sand to bring us back to what we are when we're all the sand we usually do out there, but we'll be close. And eventually, most of those rocks will get covered. Some of them are made to, if you look in front of the port area, those rocks never get covered. So just depending on where you're located, some may be covered and some won't. When all is said and done, the damages that we've experienced are around $4 million. We were lucky in that Hannah Jackson, Judge Burrell, Doss Williams, and even the governor got involved and were able to give us $2 million that we don't have to pay back toward that work. So we were very fortunate to have them come to our rescue at the state. They certainly didn't have to, but certainly they felt this was really important to the community. Some of the other things going on at the beach, which I think are really exciting. We had a beach festival in August, and it was very successful and well attended. The Chamber of Commerce, we worked with the Chamber of Commerce this year to do a sunset supper, which is a food truck event that they've had most I think it's the second Tuesday of every month. The next one is next Tuesday, in fact. It's the last one. And they bring in food trucks, and it's been a really wonderful way for the community to come out, get some really good food, and talk to your neighbors. And I know I've gone out, and the mayor's gone out, and I've seen lots of people from all over town that have made it out at least on one Tuesday or another. Some people come every Tuesday, and that's just been a really nice way to build a community here. And we hope that will continue, and that the Chamber will continue to do that next summer as well. We also, something really exciting that is fairly new, is we're going to be getting a farmer's market for Hueneme Bay. It's going to be at the beach on Saturdays, and that will probably start up this spring. It'll be the same group that is running the Channel Islands Farmers Market on Sundays, so ours will be Saturday and that one will be Sunday. There's a number of options in terms of going to get fresh food and healthy food. Very excited about that. We also are expected to have our second annual holiday tree lighting event this year. It was a very big success last year. It was held at City Hall. We worked with the Chamber of Commerce on the event. It was a wonderful partnership opportunity, and we ended up having about 250 to 300 people show up to this one-time event. And again, another wonderful way to build community and get out and meet people that are your neighbors in other parts of the city. So we're hoping for that. I think we're shooting for probably the first weekend right after, or the first week after the Thanksgiving holiday. And we hopefully will see all of you there. reserves are typically used in a city for a number of reasons. One of them is to create a capital fund, usually for repairs and replacements and things like that. And so this year we did set aside money. We set aside about $4 million of our reserves to build a 5-year capital program where we do start to go in. We have a lot of aging infrastructure in the city and a lot of things that have gotten to a point where they're in need of replacement or major repair. We want to make sure that the city stays in great shape for everyone, and so the council's made a commitment to fund some of those things. It's also a good thing we have that big reserve account because, as I mentioned earlier, we have about a $2 million expense in the damages that we had. Now, we are going to be looking at if there are ways to recover those funds, and we're looking at it now, and we will continue to look at that to see if there's some ways to recover those. So rest assured, we're not going to just walk away from that. Let's see, what else do I have on my list here? One of the things I also want to mention is, you probably have heard, the city has challenges financially, and one of the reasons, and I come from a city that was a different kind of, it's also a coastal city, but a lot more affluent. And the reason that it was a very affluent community is because we had a major regional mall, and we had a major it was called Car Country Carlsbad. It came from Carlsbad, California. And we had a major industrial park with major companies in it. And all those things considered, and coastal city meant that we had a lot of opportunities to get sales tax and property tax and hotel tax and all those kind of taxes that help cities run and keep their cities in good shape. Port Hueneme has challenges because of the 4 square miles that we have here. Half of the city is devoted to the Navy base, which is good. We love the Navy base, but they don't pay any property tax or sales tax, so we don't get anything from them. If that land was something else, we might get it, but we don't get any money from them for that directly in taxes. And the same as the port. So we have to rely almost exclusively on our property tax values, which tend to be low in this county. And we also have to rely on sales tax, which we have very limited commercial development here. So it can be a big challenge for us. One of the things when I got here, I recognized that we had a lot of people that are scheduled to retire from the city staff in the next few years. And it really gives us a wonderful opportunity to take a look at our staffing, take a look at the way we spend our expenses and things like that, and try to reduce costs. And so already, just in the year we've been looking at this, we've saved about $300,000, and we expect that we'll probably be saving at least that much next year. These are ongoing savings, and it's just by looking at how we staffing at the right levels, maybe consolidating positions, looking at people taking on more responsibilities, different responsibilities. And that's the way really that we are looking at trying to create some sustainability. We want to make sure that we pay our employees a fair wage. We want to at least be paying people at the averages. We are trying to get the very best employees that we can. I think that with great employees like I have on my team right now, we can do more with less. And so I hope that we'll be able to, I hope that we're going to be able to spruce up this city and get it back to its former glory. I love coming here. I look around here and your landscape and your facilities have been so well maintained, and I really hope that we're going to be able to do that throughout the city. So those are a few things that are new. I mean, one new thing that you might have heard about is on Monday. It's been in the paper quite a bit. It was the issue of crossing guards. So I wanted to mention to you that we're extremely happy that the school district is going to be partnering with us going forward, and we're going to be getting crossing guards back out there. We have been working with them for about 2 years, so it was very gratifying in the last couple of weeks to see them come forward with a partnership opportunity for us. So I think that's about what I was going to share with you. But I have staff here, and I'm certainly willing to answer the questions that you may have about anything going on with the city or any other questions you might. If I can't answer them, I hopefully got your back up here to be able to answer questions for you as well. Out of the action the other night. And I'll be real candid and open about that. And I'll say to you that I very much appreciate the City Council's recognition that my salary was, out of 10 cities in Ventura County, my salary was number 9. And number 10 is a smaller city in Port Hueneme, and it's a contract city with 20 employees. So I very much appreciate that the council was willing to look at my salary in the same way that they are looking at managers and will be looking at all other employees. They did the same thing with the police department. We want to make sure we pay all employees, at least at the average in the county, so that we can retain our employees and so that we can be able to attract good employees. Did I answer your question? Thank you. Yes?
Richard Jones. Initially, I think you were invited here to talk about Prop M, and since the issue was that there was no opposing comments to go against you, so to speak, I just wanted to enlighten the audience about what Prop M is without being too political.
I'd be happy to, and I won't be political. I mean, one of the things that I'm prohibited as a city spokesperson, if you will, coming out on city business, which I deem this to be that, is I have to keep it pretty factual. So I won't go into a lot of detail, but I can tell you what it is. The city has a business license ordinance. It was adopted last, or updated last, in 1978. That makes it about 37 years old. That's pretty old for a business license. Most cities have updated their business license much more frequently and certainly much more recently than almost 40 years ago. So, as I mentioned earlier, cities have very few ways of raising revenue. The revenue is used to pay for services like police, like streets, like all those things. So since this hadn't been updated for a long time, apparently the city council has been asking for this for a number of years, and we decided now is the time to do it. So we put Measure M on the ballot. It's really just an update of the ordinance that's been in place for 40 years to bring it to current standards and current, set the rates at more appropriate levels. The inflation rate in 37 years has been over 350%. So gas in 1978 was like 63 cents a gallon. So things have changed a lot, and our ordinance should as well. Every other city in Ventura County has the same ordinance. Virtually every city in the state of California has a business license ordinance. So we're really just doing what everybody else has already done and been doing for many, many years. So I guess basically that's what we're doing. Okay.
Does that have financial impact, or what is it about?
Well, it should have a financial impact. I know a lot of people question why we don't know exactly what that impact will be. But I can explain why we don't know exactly what the impact would be. We figured it probably would be somewhere in the neighborhood of maybe $500,000 to $1 million per year once the rate, assuming it passes and once the rate is set. The reason we're not sure whether it'll be $500,000 or $1 million is because there are a number of companies in the city that aren't paying it. Some of them should be paying it and just aren't. And some of them, because the ordinance is so old, we don't really have a category that could capture them. So, and just to give you an example of how business has changed in 40 years, when the ordinance was first adopted, we didn't really have the internet. We didn't have computers, we didn't have cell phones and mobile devices, so most of those kind of things have generated a lot of new business types. There were a lot of types of businesses that operated differently back then. So again, that's the other reason that we updated. But yes, we think that it will probably bring in revenue. We're not quite sure how much. Any other questions? Yes?
I believe last year that the police department was short some officers and dispatchers. Have they been able to replace those?
The police department is fully staffed. They are going to be having some, there are a couple of officers that are going to have some promotional opportunities in other cities, and so we have one officer that's getting ready to leave and one retiring, so those, as soon as those positions are vacated, they will be filled, but right now they are filled. Yes.
I understand that Proposition M is putting a much larger tax on the people who do business in supporting and coming into the port and contractors. And I read something about having to do with the Navy, and I can't see what the Navy has to do with Prop M. But could you explain some of that?
Well, I can tell you that the Navy, and they have military contractors that actually put their offices on base. A lot of military contractors, there's military contractors all over the county. There's some in Camarillo, there are a number of other cities. So they're not just on the base, they're in other cities. Navy contracts that are written state that all Navy contractors must comply with the local laws and ordinances. And so those contractors who are doing business on base for this area, for this particular base, should be paying a business license tax now, and many of them aren't. And so some of the stuff you'll be hearing is that we're going to make the base contractors pay a business license fee. Well, that's true, and they should be paying one right now. The difficulty with us, we can drive around Channel Islands and Ventura Boulevard and all of that, and we can see all the businesses that are out there, know who they are. We don't have unfettered access to the base, and so some of those contractors we can't see them. If we can't see them and we can't get on the base, we can't notify them. We're very fortunate. Recently, I had an opportunity to meet with Captain Larry Vasquez, who's the commander out here on the base, and his staff in the contracting office is working with us to make sure that those contractors have the right information so that they understand that they are required to pay our business license tax. And we're working with them right now on that. So those contractors are being notified. So you may hear that, but the reality is that a lot of those contractors should have been paying and weren't, and now we're going to be working with them to make sure they're in compliance with both the local law and the Navy contracts.
What about other businesses who support the port business, even though they're not civil service or defense contractors?
Well, we have
The support of economic commerce that comes into us through the port.
so in some cases, members of tenants out on the port property are paying a business license tax. In some cases, those taxes are somewhat outdated. Again, just some giving factual information here. Some of the really large shippers, and I won't say who they are, although I could, but I won't, are paying $100 a year in business license tax. The local coffee shop around the corner might pay 3 times that amount. So one of the things, again, this ordinance is very, very old and needs to be updated, and one of the things that we want to do is make sure that those type of things are corrected.
So if that shipping company, if this goes into effect, how much increase would it put on a shipping company, an average shipping company, or a port supporter?
Well, let me tell you how the process will work. I can't tell you that question. I can't answer that question exactly. But the way the process will work is that the city staff now, and in advance of, we're not working on it so much now, but we really can't put the exact rates in place unless the measure passes. So what the law tells us we have to do, and this is under a law that was passed in the 1990s, it tells us that if we want to change any kind of tax like that we have to let the voters know what the very maximum amount of tax that could ever be charged under any category might be. That doesn't mean that's what the tax will be. It just means that for disclosure purposes, you have to have a number out there. So as you can imagine, if we don't change the ordinance for another 40 years, we have to build something there. But the way that it really will work, when it comes right down to it, and let's just assume for a moment that it were to pass, is that the city staff will be working on the recommendation that it will make to the city council. The city council, and the recommendation that we make will be based on looking at similar cities around us and similar kinds of uses. We have some unique uses in Fort Hueneme that you won't find in every city, so to that extent, we'll probably go to other cities that have similar uses and look at the way the license tax is structured there. One of the things that I can absolutely assure you of is that whatever the staff recommendation will be, it will not be prohibitively expensive for any business. And the reason I say that is because the very last thing that the city wants to do is drive any business away from Fort Hueneme. So when we make a recommendation, that will go to the city council. It'll be in a public hearing, and the public, including any businesses, will have an opportunity to speak before the city council and give their opinion about whatever the recommendation ends up being. It's a normal government process that takes place. So that's how it will be addressed.
Well, I feel like I don't have enough information yet to determine how I'm going to vote on Measure M until I hear what the city plans to charge one of these big shipper companies.
It's a bit of a catch-22 because we can't set the exact rate. I know, you're explaining a dilemma that works for the city as well. We are only allowed to set the maximum rates. We can't set the rate unless the measure passes. But the public hearing process is the forum with which the public gets an opportunity to weigh in on the recommendation.
You're not able to give us an approximate increase, a percentage approximate increase?
You got the maximum, so it wouldn't be more than the maximum.
What's the maximum?
Well, there's a number of categories, and I have to tell you, I don't know them all off the top of my head, and I didn't bring them with me tonight.
Well, there was a statement I was reading online about Measure M, and I can't quite remember, but it said something like a certain percentage of their gross receipts. And a shipper company is a pretty big company with gross receipts.
There are a number of categories, that's certain. They're calculated in all different ways. You'll find that in every city that has an ordinance. In some cases, they're calculated on gross receipts. In some cases, it's a flat dollar amount. There's really a whole lot of different ways that the fees are calculated. They're calculated the same for each type of business category. So you won't find, you wouldn't find two different gas stations being with their fee calculated in two different ways. All gas stations would be treated the same.
So what would the big shipper companies, what would theirs be, that category?
Right now, a big shipper's paying $100. I couldn't tell you because I don't have that information in front of me. But you're welcome to contact me at the city any day this week or any day in the future, and we can certainly sit down and go over that with you if you'd like.
Well, did you read that same information that I read on Measure M?
I have no idea what you read on Measure M. There's a lot out there.
I went to the Fort Hueneme website,
Uh-huh.
and I read their information on Measure M.
Mm-hmm.
And it said a certain percentage of gross receipts.
And it just depends on the type of business. I apologize.
I'm talking about the shippers.
I know, and what I'm telling you is I don't know the answer to the question, but I would be happy to sit down with you at any point where we can sit down and look at it together. I just don't have it in front of me. I'm not trying to not answer your question.
Okay, Cynthia, we have a question over
You know, that's interesting, I've never heard that. So I guess that's the answer to your question, and I've not heard that before, and I'm not aware of that. It's certainly not happening right now. Yes?
I was just wanting to follow up on the proposition again. It seemed like, I don't know if it's true or not, but it sounded like the chamber was going against it. My concern is the revenue that the city is losing by the situation with the harbor and the port and the Navy. It seems like there's not much of a revenue base that the city can draw from. And is that the reason that we're moving forward, or I don't know what's going on with the other issues that I just mentioned? But, I mean, I've heard things stated from people, businesses and from a few small businesses, that there seems to be an inequity between who's paying and who isn't. So is that what this measure is really trying to address?
This measure is trying to address the fact that this is a very, very old ordinance that needs to be updated, and I would tell you, yes, there are inequities that currently exist that need to be fixed. It's, I mean, I'll let you be the judge, you certainly are welcome to vote, and I'm not trying to tell you how to vote, I just would say get as educated as you can on the measure. But yes, I mean, it's pretty clear that some businesses are not paying, some businesses are not paying very much, and some businesses are paying, you know, their fair share. So clearly that is one thing that the ordinance is intended to do, and that's to remedy these inequities. It's also potentially increases revenues because the revenues that are there now were set at almost 40, or the rates were set almost 40 years ago. So again, this is something I appreciate the fact that you're asking a lot of questions. Again, I can't tell you how to vote, and I'm not supposed to tell you how to vote, and I don't want to tell you how to vote. But I invite anybody that does have questions about it to, if you want to come in and have the staff sit down with you and go through the rate schedule and give them some, you know, examples that can tell you how it would apply. We're not trying to hide anything here.
Cynthia, there's no guarantee this is going to be passed. And I know you can't indicate, beat a drum for this. However, what are your contingency plans if it does not pass?
Well, we're going to continue to do exactly what we've been doing. As I said, we think it's probably going to, if it were to pass, it probably would result in maybe $1 million to $500,000 a year. That's not going to make or break the city. What it will mean is that some of the plans that we have to fix some of the things and make some improvements will probably be delayed until we can save for them, or until we can reduce enough costs in other places that we can have that money available for those things. So contingency plan, if we put it on the ballot in the future, it has to come in a general election. That would mean we'd have to put it back on in 2 years. So we'd have to wait 2 years to do it again, if the council is so inclined to do it at that time. But in the meantime, you know, we'll just probably have to delay a few plans that we'd like to do.
One of the things that you alluded to is that you currently are not collecting very much, you can't tell us how much, from businesses that do, the companies that do businesses on the base. What effort has been, and when did it start to try to collect those revenues using your current ordinance?
I believe, and I've only been here a year, but I believe this has been attempted for many years. But we're very fortunate because we have very good command on base right now, and they have, I personally have met with them, and they are assisting us in trying to notify these companies. Yes?
Yeah, what are you doing about the water situation? We are in a acute drought right now, and I'm wondering if the city has any plans to encourage homeowners or homeowner associations to do drought-resistant planting
With regard to the drought and incentives for saving water through changes in your landscaping, there are incentives that are available. The city gets 20% of its water from Callejas and 80% of its water from United. United is a groundwater source, United Conservation, Water Conservation District, and then Callejas Municipal Water District is state water that comes from Northern California. That water comes from the Metropolitan Water District, and that they have incentives right now for anyone who wants to change water-intensive plantings like turf and remove turf and put in drought-resistant and drought-tolerant plants. For instance, for every square foot of grass you remove, you can get $2 of credit, and you can use that toward your landscaping or however you want to offset your costs. In addition, Callejas themselves will have another dollar, so you get $3 per square foot. Now, a homeowner can apply for this, and I believe that entities such as homeowners associations can apply for things like this. So you can actually get money back. That's the way they encourage you to do these kind of things. So you're going to you may save money for yourself. You may do the right thing in terms of conserving water for the state in the midst of a drought. And in fact, there's a financial incentive for it.
With that, if that's the case, there's at least one thing for sure that our board, in particular our landscape committee, is after, and that's the ability to do something with the medians that are down on Bay Boulevard and Leo, which means we need permission from the city to work in concert with removing the grass that's there. Currently, we have a lot of problems with water wastage because there are leakages both from the backflow meters and the sprinklers that are there. How do we go about getting that in place, working together with you to get that to happen?
Well, if you desire to change out and remove the turf, that's something that the city would be interested in working with you and we will try to help you apply for the rebates. Then we'll work with, there is a Metropolitan Water District and sponsored website which shows their recommended drought-tolerant plants, and the city also has a palette of plants which is considered to be drought-tolerant as well. So we can work with you directly with my department and with the department of Mr. Brown, Community Development and Planning, to help you choose the proper plant palette that will hopefully, which will definitely save you water, but hopefully could result in the rebate back from Metropolitan and Callejas. So if we could get that as well, that would be phenomenal. The ribbon on top of the whole present there.
Yes, sir, Tim Hensley again. There's been a concern, when we talked about it in a meeting this morning. We may have to repair the pool, our swimming pool. And God love it, that's the best thing in the world for me, and that's why I moved here in Lagos. If we do that, we're told that maybe we won't be able to fill it back up. Could you answer that question for us, please?
In terms of the legislation that we've seen come through with addressing the drought, there have been a number of declarations by the governor, and then there's been a number of laws passed with the legislature signed by the governor. But I'm not aware of anyone that says you can't fill your pool. There's things like where you can't, you can't wash your car without using a nozzle. You can't let your landscaping run into the street and things like that. But I haven't seen anything that restricts someone from filling the pool.
Thanks.
Any other questions? when you say master plan, you mean like a real master, like a general plan?
Yes.
Well, Mr. General Plan back there.
Yeah, I think it should probably, it's not online, it's a very thick document. It's a 2015.
Did you come up front, so you can come up and address her, tell us what her question is, and then go ahead and ask her, because we can't hear.
Do you want to repeat your question?
I was interested in finding out more about the future of the city, like if there was a master plan, how far out does it go, and where could I get a look at that?
Well, the city, all cities, counties have general plans, and they're just that, they're very general. It's not going to specifically, other than zoning, indicate what's being built where. But it contains, ours contains 8 elements, everything from land use to economic development. I'd be happy to get a copy to you. I can also go over our pending projects and the activity that's currently going on or that we anticipate in the future. Essentially, 20 is fully urbanized and built. We're surrounded by Oxnard, we have no potential for annexation. I believe we have less than 1 acre of vacantly zoned residential land and scattered small sites, approximately 10 acres of vacant commercial land in various sites. So it's transitioned from the growth-oriented community to a maintenance type of city. So when you talk about future, what you see is what you get. And with the demise of redevelopment, the state eliminated redevelopment, which really transformed this community. I think most of you have been here quite a while. Anything that looks like it was built since the 80s, the redevelopment agency was involved. We lost that economic development tool. And so Bill anticipated in recycling some of the older and dysfunctional uses, and it'll be a challenge going forward with some of the light conditions, but I'd be happy to get the document for you, and we can run through that if you'd like at City Hall.
Just to add on to that, what about kind of the harbor area, or maybe the sort of the port area? Was there some talk about building that up a little bit with some more kind of walking shops, or is that not something that?
Well, not at the Deepwater Port administered by the Oxnard Harbor District. The city has a beach master plan. We have to deal with a regulatory agency called the California Coastal Commission, and so we have adopted back in the 80s a beach master plan that determines that plans for the development in an undetermined time frame of different improvements in the beach park. Our beach is challenged in that there's a public recreational easement over most of the beach that limits the kind of commercial activity you can pursue down there, but we're looking at an area called Market Street, which is near the entry to the port, and then the city owns an acre and a half beachfront lot. Together with some other opportunities that we're going to be looking at going forward to encourage potentially some visitor city uses and some exciting things.
And what is your name and position? Mr. Master Plan.
That's right, it's Greg Brown, like you call it. And so I administer a very disparate department. It's the Department of Community Development and Housing. So when you walk into City Hall, we'll administer the reception. I deal with building safety, community permit, code enforcement, parking enforcement, planning and zoning, economic development, our neighborhood preservation programs, and myriad of those kinds of things. So. Yes?
Thank you. Is there any possibility of redoing, decorating, changing the area between on Ventura Road or 99-cent store, the liquor store, if we can't get cleaned it up and paint it or do something to update it? It's pretty shabby here.
Yeah, the challenge is two-part, is we lost the tools of development. That was the main tool. It's privately held. We do not own the right-of-way. That's actually in Oxnard. And so from the curb over towards the old Kmart Shopping Center, that's all in the city of Oxnard. We do have a fairly good relationship with the shopping center owner. They actually did a renovation, if you've been here, anytime when the 99 cent store actually came in. It looks dated now, you should have seen it prior to that renovation. They've upgraded the landscaping, they maintain the parking lot fairly well, but it is a dated center. There's some opportunities with what we call community development block grant funds for facade renovations that we can look at. The difficulty there is the federal government is not allocating, we get less and less community development block grant funds, and we are at this point relying on most of those to fund our code enforcement and senior nutrition and some other programs. And so there would have to be some decisions made on that. We, at this point, have limited tools. The legislature is, and the governors are discussing maybe some alternatives to redevelopment, which the local community can encourage private property owners to update their properties. That center is a little challenging too, in that there's 5 underlying ownerships. So where the Monarchus Meat Market is, that's a separate owner from the Bay Boulevard office building, which is a separate owner from the building behind the beauty salon is, which is a separate owner from the shopping center itself, which is a separate owner from where the KFC is.
Thank you.
Sure.
If there are no other questions for Mr. Brown, I have a question that I would like to direct to Chris, if he would be willing to go back up on the stage. Chris, I would like to know if you could speak to us about the water meters and any progress so they could hear it directly from you as to what's happening, what we might be able to expect, and when we might be able to expect it.
The request was made to purchase some water meters from the city that the city is really not using that many anymore. They're primarily, they would be restricted for use in irrigation. There are some complications in selling them because they're restricted for irrigation use only. So we have the city attorney evaluating it. I did speak to the city attorney Monday briefly before the city council meeting, and he's been a very busy man lately with a lot of things that are going on in the city. And he did mention to me that he is on the verge of coming up with a decision for us. Some of the decision-making issues will be whether the city manager has the authority to enter into the agreement with Hueneme Bay, or whether we need to take it to the city council, and then how would we establish the transaction amount and things like that, making sure that we don't violate any statutes for revenue producing in the city and things like that. But we're hopeful that we're going to get it to work out. We're hopeful that we're going to get it to work out soon. One way or the other, I believe we'll have an answer in the next week or so. So with that in mind, hopefully we can get that taken care of, because I know that you want to get the irrigation separated from the potable water in those certain areas.
Thank you, sir. Your hands up one more time. Possible solution, you said you couldn't sell them, maybe. You could just leave them for us.
You can let us have them for free, and we can make a donation to whatever fund in the city you need.
Well, who knows what the city attorney may say to us. We'll see how it goes.
A little bug you can put in his ear.
All right, promise to do that.
Thank you.
Good.
Are there any more questions from the
Yeah,
audience?
Cynthia, I have one. This is a bit more complicated than the others have been.
Oh, great.
There is federal authority within the Department of Defense to take care of revenue shortfalls with cities that have a preponderance of their land taken up by, like in our case, the naval base. It is a somewhat complicated process to get the approval, and it would probably take the work of somebody like Floyd Brownlee to get involved in it. Has that been explored by anyone that you know of in the city? And if not, it's something worth looking at in terms of alternate sources of funds for the city.
You know, we have heard of that. We did check, Actually, as a result of the sand issues that we were experiencing, we actually had to get a lobbyist in Washington so that hopefully get funding for the sand. And in doing that, we actually had heard something very similar to that, and we had asked our lobbyists to check into it. So they were aware of something like that that does work for schools. It's generally because a lot of military students attend local schools, and so there is a provision for the military to pay the school district. It's a slightly different plan. The feeling of the lobbyists was that we would not be eligible. There are some funds that are available, for example, because in the event there were for highways, access from highways and whatnot into the city. We're a little unique because we're surrounded by Oxnard. So we do have the lobbyists, our Washington lobbyists, looking into the federal legislation around that. So I appreciate you bringing that up. Again, it's one of those things that we are trying to look into to see if there are any federal funds available that are just normal in accordance with the way that the military does business. Any others? Yes? It's just, I think it's just almost 23,000.
Just under 22,516. 22,516. That's a Department of Finance estimate, so we do the census every 10 years, and between the intervening years, Sacramento, based on births and deaths and driver's license information, gives estimates. We're not sure how accurate those are.
And I'll just add to this. Recently we went to San Diego, we met with Admiral Lord at Navy Southwest, and he told us that they are expecting the command out here to grow significantly. So the base numbers we factor into our population as well. I mean, it's a small piece of the whole population, but we would expect that number to grow based on what he indicated to us.
Any other questions?
Great. Well, thank you so very much for inviting us. You guys are a very nice but a very tough crowd. But I do appreciate your questions. I think they're great questions, and it's really good for us to be able to get information out to everybody. And for those of you that had questions that we couldn't answer again, you're more than welcome to contact us and come to City Hall, and we'd be happy to meet with any one of you and go over the specific information you are interested in. So again, thank you so much for inviting us.
We do have cookies and coffee in the antepacker room. No. In the kitchen. So if you want to be able to corner these really wonderful city employees, we can sort of herd them out that way, give them a cookie